Hello and welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're traveling back in time 242 million years to meet a creature so small it could curl up in the palm of your hand, yet so important it's forcing scientists to tear up and rewrite a major chapter in the story of life. This isn't about a giant dinosaur. This is about a tiny titan that just became the king of all lizards and snakes. The story starts on a beach, but not just any beach. We're on the Jurassic Coast in Devon, UK, a place famous for fossils. In 2015, an amateur fossil hunter named Robert Coram spots an unassuming rock, but his trained eye sees something more: the faint outline of a tiny skeleton, weathered into view by the sea and wind. He had no idea, but he had just discovered the oldest known ancestor of every lizard, every snake, and the unique tuatara of New Zealand. He had found the very first Lepidosaur. Paleontologists would spend years carefully studying this find, eventually naming it Agriodontosaurus helsbypetrae. That's a mouthful, so let's break it down. Agriodontosaurus means fierce-toothed lizard, and helsbypetrae means from the Helsby Rock, the 242 million-year-old sandstone formation where it was entombed. The name is fitting. For a creature with a skull just 1.5 centimeters long, it had impressively large, fierce-looking teeth. This tiny fossil was a bombshell. It was older than the previous record holder by up to 7 million years, giving us a brand new, never-before-seen glimpse into the dawn of modern reptiles. To understand just how special Agriodontosaurus is, we need to picture its world. This was the Middle Triassic period. The planet was recovering from the single worst catastrophe in its history, the Permian-Triassic extinction, which had annihilated about 90% of all life. The world was a hothouse. All the continents were smashed together into the supercontinent Pangaea, creating vast, arid deserts in the interior. There were no polar ice caps. The spot in Devon, where our fossil was found, was a semi-arid landscape of seasonal rivers and sandy dunes, sort of like modern-day Namibia. The plants were unfamiliar, no flowers, just forests of conifers, cycads, and extinct seed ferns, and the animal kingdom was in a state of flux. The old guard, the mammal-like reptiles, were on their way out. The new kids on the block were the archosaurs, the group that would eventually give rise to dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and crocodiles. In this chaotic, competitive world, tiny Agriodontosaurus was scurrying through the undergrowth, hunting insects, navigating a planet on the brink of the age of dinosaurs. Now, studying a fossil this small and fragile is a huge challenge. The bones are thinner than paper, and they're locked inside a hard block of sandstone. Trying to chip it out with traditional tools would be like performing surgery with a sledgehammer. You'd destroy it. So the research team, led by Dan Mark at the University of Bristol, turned to some seriously high-tech gear: a synchrotron. A synchrotron is a type of particle accelerator, a massive circular machine that shoots out X-ray beams billions of times more powerful than the ones at a hospital. By zapping the rock from thousands of different angles, they were able to build a perfect, high-resolution 3D digital model of the entire skeleton, all without ever touching the actual bone. They could spin the model around, slice it open digitally, and peer inside the skull, revealing every tiny anatomical detail. This digital dissection was the key that unlocked the fossil's biggest secrets. And those secrets were shocking. Before Agriodontosaurus, paleontologists had a pretty clear idea of what the common ancestor of all lepidosaurs should look like. Based on modern lizards and the tuatara, they predicted it would have 3 key features. First, a partially hinged or kinetic skull, which gives many modern lizards and snakes their flexible jaws for swallowing large prey. Second, extra teeth on the roof of the mouth, called palatal teeth, to help grip squirming insects. And third, an open bony arch on the side of its head, behind the eye. But Agriodontosaurus blew those predictions out of the water. The synchrotron scans revealed it had only one of the three expected traits. It had the open arch on its skull, but it had absolutely no sign of a hinged jaw and no teeth on the roof of its mouth. This was a major plot twist. It means that the flexible skulls and extra gripping teeth that are so crucial to the success of modern lizards and snakes were not, in fact, an ancient feature inherited from their great-great-great-great-grandfather. Instead, it seems these traits evolved independently multiple times in different lizard and snake lineages much later in their history. It's a stunning example of convergent evolution, where different species arrive at the same solution to a problem on their own. The flexible jaw wasn't the starting point, it was a later upgrade. What Agriodontosaurus did have, as its name suggests, were teeth, big ones. The powerful chompers at the front and triangular shearing teeth at the back suggest it was a specialized insect eater, perfectly equipped to pierce and crush the tough exoskeletons of Triassic cockroaches and crickets. Even at the dawn of their existence, these reptiles were already diversifying, carving out their own specialized roles in the ecosystem. So where does this little guy fit in the grand family tree? Agriodontosaurus is a member of a group called the Rhynchocephalia. Today, this entire group is represented by just one living species, the Tuatara of New Zealand. But back in the Mesozoic, the age of dinosaurs, Rhynchocephalians were everywhere, and they were incredibly diverse. Agriodontosaurus is now the oldest and most primitive member of this group ever found. This has huge implications for its only living relative, the Tuatara. The Tuatara has long been called a living fossil, a term for a species that seems frozen in time, an unchanged relic from a bygone era. One of its so-called primitive features is its skull, which has two solid, complete bony arches on the side of its head, unlike most lizards which have an open, incomplete arch. For decades, scientists assumed this solid skull structure was the ancestral state for all Lepidosaurs, and that lizards and snakes had simply lost a piece along the way. But Agriodontosaurus flips that idea on its head. As the oldest known Rhynchocephalian, it has an open, incomplete arch, just like a lizard. This, along with evidence from other early fossils like Tetalura from Argentina, strongly suggests that the open arch is actually the original, ancestral condition. The solid, primitive-looking skull of the modern Tuatara isn't primitive at all. It's a later evolutionary modification. Its ancestors likely had an open skull, and then the line leading to the Tuatara re-evolved the solid bar. This completely dismantles the simplistic, living fossil label. The Tuatara isn't a static creature that stopped evolving. It's the sole survivor of a once great and dynamic dynasty of reptiles that experimented with all sorts of body plans and lifestyles. Its history is not one of stasis, but of constant change, adaptation, and survival against all odds. It's not a relic, it's a lonely monarch, the last of its kind. In the end, the story of Agriodontosaurus helsbypetrae is a perfect example of how science works. It began with the sharp eyes of an amateur on a beach, was unlocked by cutting-edge technology, and ended up rewriting textbooks. This one tiny skeleton, less than an inch long, has forced us to rethink the very origins of a group that includes over 12,000 species alive today. It proves that in paleontology, size means nothing. It's a powerful reminder that the grand, sprawling story of evolution is full of surprising twists, and that even the smallest characters can have the most profound impact. The fierce-toothed lizard from the Helsby Rock has given us a new window into the deep past and shown us that the history of life is far more complex and far more interesting than we ever imagined. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.